Hi everyone. Hope you're doing well and hope you're doing safe. I'm Namrata Sadhvani. I'm super excited to have taken over the Dreamland account and I'm going to be reading a story today for all of you. So just going to wait a few minutes for 2-3 more people to join in so that we can start the storytelling session, and I'm really excited about this. Hi everybody who's joining in. Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi. Hello to everybody who's joining in. All right, just gonna wait for 2-3 more people to join. And then we can start the story. I hope you're doing well and I hope you can hear me. If you can hear me, can you please give me a thumbs up or a hi in the comments so that I know that you can hear me and the story is loud and clear. I'm waiting for a confirmation. Thank you so much to everybody who's joining in. Getting a few requests for people to join into the live session. Unfortunately, I will not be able to take you guys on the live, but I will be doing the story session. So this is what I'm going to be reading. It's Ruskin Bond's The Railway Gang. So I am really excited to be reading this for all of you. So this is one of my favorite storybooks by Ruskin Bond. And Ruskin Bond is one of India's favorite authors. He's not just India's favorite, he's one of the world's favorite authors, and I was so excited about this book that he's written specifically for little children, and with the comics and with the illustrations inside. So I'm really excited to bring this to you. So this is Ruskin Bond's The Railway Gang, and basically it's a book with a very deep message. It's about how homeless strays are found all over the country. We don't really pay attention to them, whether it's animals, whether it's birds, whether it's people. There are homeless lives all over the country. We don't really pay attention to them. And this is about the story of one such homeless dog, and how homeless people all watch out for each other. And this is really something that we can also learn from them, how to watch out for each other. And I think that is the most important lesson that we pick up from this book, that is The Railway Gang. So quickly, let's start reading the book. So Ruskin Bond's Railway Gang, and this is published by Dreamland Publications. So really excited about this. So this is a story about a little dog named Chotu. Lonely as only a dog can be, Chotu roamed the empty railway yards in search of food and company. You can look at the illustrations. They are absolutely beautiful, very Indian, very desi. And because it's about the railway gang, it's actually all about Indian railway stations. And we all have traveled by trains. We all love traveling by trains. We all love the riot of colors, the cacophony of sounds, and so much more entertainment that happens on railway stations. So this is about a dog, Chotu, who is a stray dog, and he is a part of a gang of stray dogs on the railway station. So the station porters called him Chotu because he was the smallest of the street dogs that roamed the precincts of the railway station, picking up leftovers or scraps of food from arriving or departing passengers, or from the railway tracks where discarded fruit or stiff sun-dried chapatis were sometimes to be found. So I know we've all done this whenever we travel by trains, and whenever we travel from one destination to another destination using a train. A lot of us do this. If we are carrying any food with us, we discard it at the railway station, we throw it onto the tracks, or we throw it onto the platform, and that's where all these homeless dogs find their food, find their nourishment, actually, because they don't have any other way of nourishing themselves. There were at least half a dozen strays who had the roaming rights of our little station at the end of the line. There was Raja, part Alsatian, part Spaniel, part Greyhound, who led the troop. Rishi, the only dog in the gang who couldn't bark. And Rani, who delivered puppies twice a year and who was forever lean and hungry. A couple of other misfits of no particular breed. So it was really a gang of stray dogs, all different from each other and all watching out from each other. And of course, we had our hero Chotu over here. So this is Chotu. If you can see, Chotu is, he had Scottish blood. That is Scottish Terrier blood with a bit of Dachshund and Pomeranian thrown in. He had a nice fluffy tail, a black and white coat, a right ear that was usually erect, and a left ear that was usually at rest. He had nice rounded paws, good for scratching. So can you all see Chotu over here? So this is what is Chotu's description, the black dog over here. Alright, the world was full of fleas. We know how fleas always trouble dogs. They were the true masters of the universe. They and irate station masters. Our station had a new station master. He was a young man, full of energy and full of ambition. The former station master, who had retired, had been an easy-going, philosophical person who suffered from gout. He felt sorry for beggars and dogs who wandered about the station platforms without any hindrance. So we all know station masters, and we all know that they are responsible for maintaining the peace and the law and order on the stations. So this is the old station master who was generally very sympathetic towards all the strays and all the beggars at the railway station. However, now there was a new station master. Can you all see? A young man who's now the station master. He would have none of it. The beggars were evicted and now had to compete with the beggars at the interstate bus stop. So now the beggars of the railway station had to move to the bus stop and compete with the beggars over there. The dogs were driven away too, but they kept coming back. They had nowhere to go. The bus stand was in the hands of the mafia, a tough gang of semi-wild hounds. So yes, there was a tough gang of dogs at the bus station also. So the railway station dogs were not allowed to be there at the bus station, which is quite a pity. The coolies or the porters were used to the dogs. They were, after all, fellow outcasts, and once an outcast, always an outcast. So here we have the scene of a bustling bus station. Again, very similar, but there's buses instead of trains over here. And Raja and his gang, that is Raja, the leader of the gang of stray dogs, and his gang had one friend, the guard of the Doon Delhi Express, who often shared his lunchbox with the gang. So this is the guard of the Doon Delhi Express who often shared his lunchbox with the gang. It is possible that he did not care for the food prepared at home, because after throwing it to the dogs, he would go to the station cafeteria and treat himself to fresh pakoras or chole bhature. Now, all of us have had pakoras and chole bhature at railway stations, and we all know how yummy they absolutely are. His name was Kishore, and he had a soft spot for Chotu and often saved a puri or a paratha for the little dog. So can you see here? This little train master is good friends with Chotu. Meat dishes were not available at the station, which meant that the dogs were from necessary vegetarian. But the odd chicken was known to disappear from the poultry farm on the far side of the railway tracks. Jackals, no doubt, or the occasional youngsters with a craving for butter chicken Ludhiana. But Rani still had a couple of feathers stuck to her ears, so there was more than one culprit. We must forgive her, for she needed the protein to manage all those pups now sheltering in an abandoned goods wagon. So that's the story of Rani. The dogs weren't fussy. Of course, how can you be fussy when you have so little to choose from? They ate their vegetables like obedient children. But Chotu had a weakness for puris, and Kishore often saved a puri for him. Some of the dogs were putting on weight until that pesky new station master came along. So the pesky new station master did not allow them to stay for long enough so that they could put on weight. Still, there were times when he was off duty or on leave, and the gang would take advantage of his absence by crossing the railway tracks and advancing along the longest of the two platforms. If chased away, they could always disappear into the slums on either sides of the track. Can you see this? So this is sometimes the station master coming and hounding the dogs. They would often disappear to the slums on either side of the tracks. Are you enjoying the story so far? If yes, please do leave a yes in the comments so that I know that you're enjoying it. One morning, when the Delhi-bound train was about to depart, Chotu slipped past the ticket collector and railway policemen and joined the throng on the platform. The advantage of being small like Chotu was that he could come and go without being noticed, whereas his companions, being more noticeable, were usually chased away. On this particular morning, there were a lot of school children going home for their holidays, with the result that there was quite a scramble outside the compartments. So all these little children were going home for their vacations and they were trying to board onto the train. There was quite a scramble on the platform. And of course, Chotu found himself on the middle of the platform. A little girl noticed Chotu and exclaimed, "What a sweet little doggy!" And her brother presented Chotu with a glucose biscuit. Chotu made quick work of the biscuit and hung around for more handouts. Someone offered him a lollipop, but he did not accept it. He knew what was good for him. A samosa came his way and he made short work of it. Soon, several children were offering him biscuits, pakoras, samosas, sandwiches, and Chotu was enjoying the meal of his life. Someone picked him up and thrust him into the compartment where the children continued to make a fuss of him. So all these children in the train platform, in the train compartment, continued to make a fuss out of Chotu. "Don't fondle him," exclaimed a nervous mother. "He's a street dog, a stray. You'll pick up some disease." But before anyone could remove Chotu from the compartment, the train was moving. "Don't put him out now," said one of the boys. "He'll fall on the tracks and be killed. Wait till we come to a station." But the next station, Hardwar, was 2 hours away. The engine picked up speed and the train rushed through the field and the forest. Chotu had seen plenty of trains, but this was the first time he had been on a moving train. The children continued to fuss over him, but after some time they lost interest in Chotu and returned to their mobile phones. All our children do this. They are so interested in conversations before, but after some time they all go back to their mobile phones. Chotu curled up in a corner of the compartment and fell asleep. At Hardwar, a ticket inspector came along, and Chotu was bundled out of the compartment. He found himself on a platform very different from the one that he was used to. It was bigger and busier and rather frightening. So now Chotu was in a platform which was completely strange for him. So obviously, as a little dog, he was quite frightened and quite scared. There were people everywhere, different costumes, different languages, farming people, business people, laborers and their families, rich people, poor people, all in Hardwar to bathe in the waters of Mother Ganga, river of 1,000 blessings. And there were dogs too, wild-looking dogs from the forests across the river, unfriendly dogs, snarling dogs, snapping dogs, more like jackals than dogs. So Chotu found himself in a company of another set of stray dogs, but all of these stray dogs were not very friendly. Of course, they had a stranger in their midst. Chotu did not want anything to do with them because they were not his friends. He slunk away in the crowd, made his way to the end of the long platform and crept into the bushes. He remained there for some time, resting, getting his bearings. He knew he was far from home, his familiar little station, but he had no way of knowing just how far he was from his known world and the rest of the gang. That long ride in the swaying compartment had confused him. After some time, he got up and went about in search of familiar landmarks, but there weren't any. Instead, he found himself on the outskirts of a large town, and walking away from the shops and houses and bathing ghats, he came to a lonely patch of sand which sloped down to the rushing river. It was the first time Chotu had seen a river. So can you see Chotu is on the banks of the river now? It was the first time Chotu had seen a river. Back in his hometown, he had seen a small canal and even fallen into it. But this was another world, a great wilderness of water thundering down from the mountains. It was too powerful to be stopped. It was the beginning and the end of the world he knew. But he was thirsty. Timidly, he crept to the edge of the water, where it curled between some boulders and drank his fill. The water was cold and invigorating. It had come down from the source at Gaumukh and Badrinath. So he's actually drinking water from the Ganga river at Haridwar. Chotu felt all the better for it, and with a spring in his step, he set out in search of the rest of his gang. But all roads had led back to that frightening railway station, and the only dogs he saw were those fierce bullies who chased him here and there. So these are the fierce bully dogs who are chasing Chotu because he doesn't belong here. A child threw him a chapati, but before he could get to it, a big fellow had pounced and swallowed it in one gulp. Chotu, a voice in the crowd, who could be calling him? Who would know him in this constantly moving mass of humanity? Chotu! It was the guard from the Delhi Doon Express, none other than Kishore, friend of the railway dogs who had a soft spot for Chotu. He was the guard in the train now getting ready to leave for the Doon. Passengers thronged the busy platform, but Kishore had seen and recognized the little dog. So can you see, this is Kishore. He had recognized Chotu. Chotu found a friend in the middle of all the strangers on the Haridwar platform. Chotu had seen him too. He ran towards Kishore, barking with joy and making frantic leaps towards his benefactor. So amidst all the strange faces, Chotu had found a friend. How did you manage to get to Haridwar? Asked Kishore, picking up the little fellow and carrying him to the guard's van at the rear of the station. On a pilgrimage of your own, are you? You better come home with me before you're eaten up by this lot. And 5 minutes later, as the train pulled out of Haridwar, Chotu was sitting comfortably in the open guards enclosure, watching the crowded ghats and riverside steps recede into the distance. So this is Chotu sitting with Kishore in the open guards companion at the end of the train, and he's watching Ganga and the riverside go away. There's no place like home, even if it's only a familiar railway platform, and Chotu was happy to be back with his old friends and the rest of the gang. They wanted to know where he'd been, travelling ticketless on the Indian railways, something we should never do. But he really didn't have anything to say. It was too long a story. So now you see Chotu is reunited with his gang of friends, with his gang of stray dogs. The next meal took precedence. Of course, Chotu was so hungry. And when a stout lady threw away the contents of her lunchbox, there was a mad rush for the stale puris and potatoes. But a pair of wily crows got in there first and flew off with the puris. The dogs were no match for the crows. So can you see here? There's a group of crows who came down, took away the puris that the dogs were meant to eat. And the station master was no match for the crows. So the station master could tell the dogs to go away, but he couldn't deal with the crows. But give them all their due. They stand united in their efforts to keep the platform free from all our throwaways. So whether it is the railway station guard, or whether it is the stray dogs, or whether it is the crows, they all have a very important role to play, all a part of the railway gang, and they help to keep our railway stations neat and clean. So that's the end of the story, and that's the end of Chotu's story. Chotu, the stray dog who found himself at home at a railway station amongst his little gang of dogs. So I hope you enjoyed this storytelling session. I loved reading the storybook. I am a mother of twin boys, and my boys love reading the story, and they absolutely keep reading it again and again when they are reminded of the goodness of the world. Dreamland Publications has a lot of such books and a lot of such storybooks. So please go ahead and explore all their range. And I'm going to be saving this video on the IGTV. Do let Dreamland Publications know if you want us to organize more story sessions like this. Thank you everyone, and have a wonderful evening ahead. Thank you for tuning into this storytelling session. Bye-bye.